Welcome to Nightmare Echoes. Listen, scream, and embrace your horror obsession. In this Halloween episode, Steven and I cover Late Night with the Devil. Join us as we discuss the following topics. Is this found footage? Is Minnie hiding in plain sight? And what deal did Jack make? Monday on the podcast, Margo is back to cover Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. But until then, Late Night with the Devil. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Nightmare Echoes and happy Halloween as we're coming to you. I'm here joined by co-host Steven. Steven, how's it going?
Happy Halloween.
Yeah.
And thank you for inviting me back as a guest on your show, and I'm excited to talk about Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, so IMDb credits this as coming out in 2023, even though it didn't get released into theaters until 2024, and that's because it premiered in March of 2023 at South by Southwest. So 1 year later, March 2024, it hit theaters, and now it's on Shudder. But it was written and directed by two brothers, Cameron and Colin Carnes? I don't know how to say that one. But it's starring David Dastmalchian as Jack Delroy, Laura Gordon as Dr. June Ross Mitchell, Ian Bliss as Carmichael Haig.
Yeah, I think Jack's wife is Madeline Piper as a character, but I forgot the actress who played her.
Georgina Haig.
Oh, thank you.
Which is interesting because we have a character named Carmichael Haig, but there's an actress played whose name is Haig in real life. I thought that was weird.
Some parallels there.
Yeah. Interesting that it was filmed during COVID, and so people would fly over. If they lived in the country, they could have filmed it in Australia, I think. People would either come in, they had to quarantine, and then film. They lost a few people right before shooting started, so people that were originally hired to play certain characters didn't do it, and other people stepped up to the roles. Some people that were playing other parts then played a bigger role, and it's really interesting. Do you want to say anything about the movie before we go into it?
Well, no, I really liked it, and I think we just need to dive in and start talking about it.
Sure. So it's interesting that it is also a found footage in a couple of ways. It does a different way than at least the found footage that we've seen in the past, right? So with VHS, with Blair Witch Project, with Cloverfield, it's always someone holding a home use video camera recording the events. In this one, this is a live taping of a show called Night Owls. This takes place on Halloween night 1977, which is why we chose it for our Halloween episode. So that's footage that we found is the last tape of this interview and this talk show that happened. But at the same time, we also have other footage that's in black and white. It's actually more widescreen being filmed of what they refer to as behind the scenes footage that they mixed in with this broadcast so we would know what is happening throughout the night, not just what the viewers saw at home. Some of it works well, some of it doesn't work well for me, even though I do love this movie. There are times when there's multiple cameras recording. People are having very intimate conversations about events that are happening. And by the way, we're going to spoil the whole thing. So if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. You can keep listening if you like to. There's a scene where they're sharing information about the fate of a character. And he's like, hey, don't tell anybody that. Keep that secret. Well, they're obviously being filmed very up close. That wouldn't have happened. I don't think the conversation would have genuinely happened if these behind-the-scene cameras were recording them. They would have said, hey, let's go talk over there where there's not a camera, I think. But other than that, I think the found footage is cool. It does it in two ways. One, we found this tape of this recording that broadcast Halloween 1977. And the other one is we splashed it together with this actual people walking around with cameras like our normal found footage movie, recording the behind-the-scenes of what happened at this taping.
And those other scenes are really what happens during breaks from the live broadcast. So when you see the color broadcast, that's really like the color broadcast that was actually supposedly seen by the TV audience.
Yes.
Versus the black and white behind the scenes coverage was more like the show's staff members talking, like say in between takes during breaks and such.
Right. And I do want to say that the aesthetic is amazing. They really made it feel like 1970s. Everybody's wearing these browns, these orange colors. The set is like orange, brown, yellow.
Hairstyles.
Yeah. Everything is really good. And I think it did a really good job of bringing it to the 70s, And I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, so this movie, when we start it, has 8 intro logos from all these different companies that worked on this movie together, which is, I mean, it's a great sign of teamwork of all these people that helped go through this movie. But it's interesting that it felt a little like, hey, man, how many intro logos are we getting? So it was a lot. But when the movie starts, there's a voiceover that's telling us that this is in the 1970s. We're showing how the 1970s was a crazy time. They show us footage of the gasoline shortage, of people wanting to impeach Nixon, and then we show some clips of Satanic Panic. They talk about how and April 4th, 1971 was the first episode of The Night Owls. It's hosted by Jack Delroy, who's played by David Dastmalchian, who I recently saw in Last Voyage of the Demeter. He's been in the Ant-Man movies.
Oh, yeah. I didn't recognize that.
And he was Polka Dot Man in The Suicide Squad, which was good. But he was also in Boogeyman. He was in Oppenheimer, but who wasn't in Oppenheimer? But the show opens thanking for people letting them into their living rooms and makes a joke about his parents watching Johnny Carson instead of him.
Yeah, Johnny Carson's so popular back then. I was going to say that one of the things that I wasn't around in the 70s, I'm pretty young, but then my grandmother used to tell me stories about the satanic occult and things that were happening. She was adamantly against it, and she didn't want things like that happening around us grandchildren. Here at the beginning of the movie, it mentions how Jack is a member of this group in New York and regularly visits the Grove, which is like
wealthy men congregate.
Right, exactly.
They have a lot of power. It has politicians, entertainers, and captains of industry.
Yeah, and I think it was an elite California camp or something like that. But anyway, he's a member of this group that's sort of part of this cult culture, and they're meeting secretly in the woods, fraternity.
Right, and then their leader is always dressed up as like an owl, and other people are dressed up as birds in these meetings, which is why his show is called Night Owls, as a reference to that, right? But, But a night owl is somebody that stays awake all night to watch these late talk shows.
Yeah.
And
jumping ahead, there are a lot of audience members in some of the costumes that are in the movie, which reflect this.
Yeah, the show itself, the talk show, would have you believe that those people are there for a costume contest, on which a lot of things they set up for the night have to get delayed based on the events that are going to happen. So we're supposed to have a woman that sings at the end to wrap them out. We're supposed to have a costume contest, but they kind of let those go to the wayside to keep focusing on these events. But we get clips. This voiceover is telling us about the show's history, and they show these funny skits. There's one where Jack Delroy is a caveman, and his cave woman wife is complaining that he gets to go out hunting all day where she has to stay home and cook and clean, and the audience thinks it's funny. We show where somebody is spinning a wheel, like in a game show. She wins $10,000. Everybody gets excited. Then we have an animal tamer that brings in a spider, which gets loose into the show, and everybody goes crazy, which was probably set up by somebody, right? Like, hey, let's make the spider get loose for good television.
They found it pretty quickly in the audience.
Yeah, so they did.
Somebody knew where it was.
But then they say, as they're going through this timeline, this voiceover is still going, that in November 1972, Jack Delroy signed a 5-year deal with UBC, and his goal is becoming the biggest in late night. His wife is there by his side, and she's a stage actress named Madeline Piper. So they're kind of like a couple that's famous and together in New York City. Then we go into more of the history that after 4 seasons of Night Owls, the ratings cannot match Carson. In September of 1976, Madeline is diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, even though she's a non-smoker. It's like a big deal in all the news. There's an episode that he brings her on 1 month later, so it's October now, 1976, and she's there. She's wearing cloth on her head, like tied in a nice decoration, so that it gives us the impression that she's lost her hair due to chemotherapy. She has a breathing mask there. She's really sick. And she talks about the relationship in the past. How when Jack first met her, she was behind the stage at this one show, and there was naked women everywhere, all beautiful, and Jack was just blushing. He was just blushing because he's an innocent guy, is the story she was trying to tell. And because she's sick there, the ratings jump way up, and he gets the best night he's ever had in the show, but it's still 1 point short of Johnny Carson's show. And 2 weeks after that episode aired, she dies. So then the backstory tells us that Jack leaves the show for a little bit. He disappears from New York, but he comes back and he's doing all these more controversial things to try to get ratings. So we see a Marine and a hippie being interviewed together. They get into a big fight, just as one example. And then we have Jack arm wrestling with a little person.
There's like a lewd interview.
Yeah, right? There's one woman that's kind of cusses him out. She's like, "What's with you, Jack? You used to be the effing man." Like, they're bleeping it out, right? They bleep it out because it's a live broadcast, so these things get bleeped out. It's funny. So when they don't get bleeped out in the movie, it's because whoever is on the censor board didn't realize it was about to happen, which I thought was interesting in the movie. Sometimes they get bleeped out. Sometimes they don't get bleeped out. Then the voiceover lets us know that brings us to Halloween night 1977, where we're going to have this footage of this tape that was found and mix it together with behind-the-scenes footage. And this is what we're about to watch, and we get the title card, Late Night with the Devil.
And we find out it's sweeps week, which I didn't know anything about, but it's like they talked about how sponsorship is happening, shows can get pulled, and there's a lot of emotion for Jack because he's obviously nervous that he's never been able to meet the same ratings as Carson's show. And
right. So they go over the setup for the night when the show starts, that they're going to start with Christoph, who is a magician, Carmichael Haig, who is an ex-magician, now a skeptic who will debunk magic, Dr. June Ross Mitchell with her subject of her new book, Lily, and then Miss Cleo James, who will sing us a song at the end. We see that Gus is dressed up in this like kind of cheap devil costume with horns and a cape, and he's introducing everybody. He's got that really good MC voice. He's like, "Jack Delroy." And then the Night Owl's door opens and Jack comes out.
Oh, does Jack come out? Because
that's
I thought
right.
he was hiding.
He was
normal shows, he would come out from behind the door, sort of like Carson did from the Tonight Show with the curtain. But in this one, he calls him, but he doesn't come out right away.
Yeah, he keeps saying, "Jack, we're live. Where you going?" And people start to giggle to themselves as they see that Jack's in a ghost costume, like a bed sheet, kind of like Michael
with
Myers.
Two holes. Yes.
Yeah, so he's behind him. He scares Gus, and everybody gets a big laugh at Gus's expense. Jack introduces they're going to have a spooky episode, and Gus starts playing a theremin, which is an instrument you can play without touching it, and starts making these spooky noises. Jack makes some jokes. Some of them are about Gus's, but he tells everybody, yes, that is sweep weeks, and this is why it's so important. And he goes in to say that interest in the occult and newspapers are full of ads of psychics, fortune tellers, and exorcisms. The audience boos at the last one, and even Gus shows his disapproval. Jack introduces Christu, who comes out with his fingers on his temple as if he's reading Jack's mind, then goes over to shake his hand.
And he talks about how he can hear spirits. So this is just setting up. The first guest is someone who can basically commune with the dead.
Right.
So he goes on to talk about how he's hearing some spirit and he's trying to come up with a name. Like, starts with a P, goes through Peter. It arrives on like a Peterson or something like that.
And then someone in the audience is like, "Oh, Peterman, my wife's maiden name was..."
Peterson, is her wife's maiden name.
And then she's like, "Oh, she's here with us." He's like, "Is she? She ran off with my neighbor 5 years ago." And Jack jumps in. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." He goes, "Don't be. My golf game's never been better." So Christo has a couple of misfires when he's trying to guess, but he finally lands on...
It was Edmund. So before that, though, I don't know if you caught this, but there's next to the man that he was talking to whose wife ran off, there's this person in a skeleton costume that's completely creepy. They don't talk, they barely move. And Jack's making jokes about his costume, but the way that they did the camera angle, it really creeped me out, just having that person there in that skeleton costume, because he comes back up later a couple times during the movie.
Yeah. So then Christu is trying a different attempt. Before he gets to Edmund, he says there's a name that starts with a B, and one guy's like, "My name's Bear," and he goes, "No, that's not it." And he goes, "Well, it's been that for 42 years. And the audience is all laughing. So he's like failing miserably before he starts receiving a message about Edmund. He goes to this young woman, and she finds out it's her little brother. and they have a conversation. He asks about his papa, and the sister of the deceased says that we always called father dad, but the mom of the deceased says that papa was what he called a stuffed animal, and she wants Christoph to tell him that papa is safe and that everybody's safe, and Christoph tells him he already knows. And then at least it's a big success for the character, because after all these failed attempts, he's got someone there that they feel more comfortable after this conversation, which is kind of what he does, right? That's his whole thing, is he talks to the dead and makes people feel better about it. Jack talks about Christoph's tour dates that are coming on the screen, and he's about to go to commercial break when Christoph starts having what looks like a psychic attack. He is in a lot of pain and asks if anybody knows a Minnie. No one accepts it. Jack says there might be a similar sounding name, and Gus tries to say he knew a Molly, and Christoph is certain it's a Minnie. And then he mentions an unmarried man with a wedding ring and says the spirits need to talk to him.
And then he sort of does this weird blackout thing. His eyes roll back. Equipment issues are starting to happen all around him.
Yeah, lights go off and on.
It's weird, yeah, like a short power outage.
Right, and then Christoph says it's gone. Jack says they're going to commercial break.
And when he says that, the camera shows that he has his wedding ring on. Yeah. I caught that, and I'm like, oh, an unmarried man wearing a wedding ring. But we don't know who Minnie is.
Yeah. During the commercial break, this is where we're treated to the footage that's now black and white, and it's more widescreen. Jack and Gus walk Chris to his seat, and Gus is trying to tell Jack to walk backstage with him. Gus is worried about the little girl that is going to be on later with Dr. June Ross Mitchell, because the crew saw restraints and knives, which has them worried. Leo comes over asking Christou to stick around longer, and he tries to say he should go, but Leo snaps him on the back, which makes him cough up a little bit, and is like, great, thank you for staying. We see that Christou is bleeding from the nose, and Leo gives him a handkerchief.
So I think at this point in the back, they also mentioned that there's someone from the network, Cavendish or someone, and his wife watching from the audience, so this makes Jack a bit nervous.
Yeah, Jack thanks Leo for the lighting effect, and Leo's like, hey, if you liked it, then I'll take credit for it. But giving this the impression that he didn't do the lighting, he has no idea what's going on with issues. That. As they're walking back on stage, Phil comes back out. Phil's the cameraman, the one running all the cameras, like the head of them. Jack faces a mirror to straighten his tie, and as they walk back out on the stage, we see the mirror, and if you were to pause the film, you see that Minnie is standing in the mirror, Jack's ex-wife.
Oh, I didn't
like
catch
the ghost
that.
of her, right?
Wow.
She appears like 4 or 5 times.
A few times, yeah.
Throughout the movie. So back on stage, when the show starts again, we're back to the color. We see like this fake bat going in front of the camera. Jack catches up any viewers on what just happened on the show so far. He says that we're about to bring out someone once known as Carmichael the Conjurer, who has stopped that and has now become a renowned skeptic, Carmichael Haig. He comes out on stage, he does some little small tricks with a cigar, making it appear and disappear, then he lights with the flames from his hand, and the show love it. Jack goes into the history of how amazing Carmichael was in the business, letting us know that his group hypnosis routine was the first of its kind. But now Carmichael hung all that up, and he works for a group called the International Federation of Scientific Investigation into the Paranormal, IFSIP. This is what they call it, IFSIP. Yeah. And we see pictures of Carmichael, different investigations. We see him standing in front of the Amityville Horror House, and he said that he tried to contact Ed and Lorraine, but they both declined his invitation.
He also takes a very pragmatic approach to explaining the paranormal. And so, yeah, I think he's about to attack Christoph's character, basically say it was just a performance and an act. And so one of my favorite lines from Carmichael is he says, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah, but do you know much about Ed and Lorraine Lauren?
No, I don't.
So they're real people in life who went out to do exorcism and stuff, right? But they went and, I would say, fought the paranormal on a regular basis. They're the basis for the Conjuring series. So they're in Conjuring 1, 2, The Devil Made Me Do It. The 4th Conjuring's coming out soon. They're also a significant part in Annabelle Comes Home. But that whole series is set based on their actual files, quote unquote. Like they bend the story to make it more Hollywood, but they've made the Conjuring series based on that.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting.
Wow.
So it was a cool...
That's a good tie-in.
A good tie-in to other horror properties. But although they're real life people. Jack asks Carmichael if he still carries a check around, and he pulls a check out for $100,000, and he says he'll give it to anyone that could give him proof that the supernatural is real. And he says that several dozens have tried, but he's never had to pay out a single dime.
And just putting that in context, in the late 1970s, $500,000 was quite a lot of money.
Yeah, but we didn't get to $500,000 yet.
Oh, okay.
Right now it's 100,000.
Oh, right.
He does increase
100,000. You're right.
Yeah, he does increase that later.
And he does increase it to $500,000 later.
Right. So he's out there and he's basically saying that Christoph is fake and that he had a lot of failed attempts until he got some of the audience to fall for his gags. He keeps saying throughout the whole show that they're a real suggestible lot. But then Jack defends Christoph, saying that the message from Minnie was meant for him, that he's an unmarried man with a wedding ring, and that Minnie was his secret nickname that he never told anybody, that he used to call Madeline. Carmichael gets upset and saying his wife's death was known wide around the world and is statistically certain that some fool would take the bait. And then he pulls out his checkbook, offering $500,000 if Christoph could produce the spirit of Jack's dead wife. Just then, Christoph starts coughing, getting worse. He falls to the ground and spews black bile projectile at Carmichael, getting all over his clothes. Jack calls for a commercial break, and the black bile is aimed at the camera. So, we get more. We're back to the black and white footage. We show a woman that went to go check on Christoph, and he's rushed off stage. They call for a cleanup. Carmichael snaps at somebody to trade his jacket for a different one. Carmichael tells Jack that he believes Jack told Christoph his wife's nickname to get some drama on the air.
Now, all the while, those equipment troubles are getting worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something's possessed the equipment or the studio lights. For some reason, things keep happening.
Carmichael also asks Jack about the Grove, and he wants to know if all those things that really happened, the handshakes, the orgies, and the arcane ceremonies, but he mostly wants to be invited to the orgies. Leo pulls Jack aside for a side conversation and tells him the ambulance is on the way, and his conversation with the VIPs and his wife that you brought up will have to wait till next break because things happen. He then tells Jack that people are calling like crazy into the network, and Jack asks if they're offended or confused, and Leo adds angry. Jack is excited because that isn't really a bad thing, and they get ready to go back to the show. Jack notices that Dr. June Ross Mitchell is waiting to talk to him. When he goes to speak to her, the door set closes, and they start the 5 count to get back on. So Jack reassures the audience when they're back on that Christou is receiving medical attention backstage, and Carmichael believes that he doesn't need it because he's acting. It's called spouting and controlled regurgitation.
And then he does another little trick here with the check.
Yeah, it appears in Jack's pocket instead of his, but he gives it back, and Jack tells him, I believe you'll be giving out that check later because of our next guest. We do hear an ambulance coming near, and Jack has some pause, but then goes to talk about a manuscript for a book, which he hasn't been able to stop thinking about. He pulls out the books and shows it to the viewers, which is called Conversations with the Devil, written by Dr. June Ross Mitchell, and is about her subject, Lily. He says to catch them all up to speed, he wants to show them a clip put together by her team, but warns people at home with small children that what they're about to see is profoundly disturbing and shocking. The tape rolls. June is doing the voiceover here, and we see footage of where they're talking about this first church of Raskus. They're saying that they have these rituals. They interview the leader who says there's no such thing as good or evil or redemption, that what we desire and how we obtain it are the only things that matters.
And they also talked about how children are being bred for sacrifice.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get some footage of the FBI who suspect kidnappings and firearms offenses where they storm around the house, but then the people inside the house lighted a flame. And this happened in August of 1974.
Yeah, douse the perimeter with gas and burn it. And it was, I think the leader had told them to do that.
Yeah. And then the FBI, the FBI goes in and they find one survivor, which is the little girl named Lily, who at the time was 10 years old. The FBI asks Dr. June to treat her. They state that they've actually made a lot of progress together, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
So then Lily's the only person that survived that fire in the tape. And right. So she's carried off. And of course, that's when Dr. June is trying to help treat her.
Right. We see some footage of a session that she recorded when she was treating her, but we're focusing on the reel-to-reel tape that's being played. She's asking if there's a demon now speaking, and when the tape reel breaks, and we cut back to Jack and Carmichael.
There was an audio tape, and
Right.
that was between Dr. June and Lily.
Correct.
Where they had recorded one of their sessions together when Dr. June was trying to help her.
So June comes out and has to encourage Lily to come out, and when she comes out, she looks like a little happy kid. She's got this smile, but I feel like her eyes had no emotions in them. It's a creepy smile.
The actress, little girl that played that role, did a great job. The other thing I liked about Lily was the fact that she was focusing on the cameras with that creepy stare. She was just staring at the cameras, and even to the point of turning around, like almost backwards, and staring at the camera at one point.
So Jack, ever the comedian, says he's going to start by asking Lily a really hard question, and June gets really nervous. But he asks if she's ever watched her show, and she says no, she's normally in bed by the time it airs, but she knows who he is because June always talks about him and says that he's very handsome. June blushes, and the audience seems to like that. Lily adds that he's the man that lost his wife to cancer.
She knows what it's like to lose people close to you, I think is something she says to him, that I guess trying to relate to him.
Yeah. And he says that she has such wise words for someone so young.
And then, I don't know if you were going to talk any more about their conversation, but there's a quote from her that was extremely creepy, like towards the end, where she sounded like Minnie when she said it.
She did, right. What I did want to talk about is that she tells Jack that she knows he's worried about his TV show ratings, but that he doesn't need to worry because soon he's going to be very famous, which is a really good part. But so...
Oh, that's right. She does say that before the line in which she has Minnie's voice. But she says, "Don't I already look pretty, Jack?"
Yeah, so that's when they're on commercial break, and it's black and white again. And the makeup person comes over, and he says they're just here to make us look pretty. And she looks over saying, "Don't I already look pretty, Jack?" And it's in Minnie's voice, and he takes pause. He's all weirded out. He's creeped out by it.
And then the equipment troubles are happening again.
Yeah.
I noticed at this point we've got some weird static things going on, and it's.
June calls him over to talk to him and says that she doesn't think he should continue because Lily has become more and more unpredictable. And Jack says that unpredictability will be good for not only the show, but for her book sales. She claims to not care about the book sales, but Jack tells her it's her time. Like, it's time to be famous. You've done a lot of hard work. You've earned this. Let's do this. Leo comes over. He's worried that she's getting cold feet, but Jack says he'll handle it. Leo gets a call from Christou. He tells Jack that Christou is now dead, that he had a hemorrhage in the ambulance. Jack says that no one should hear about this, especially Gus.
That was sort of unexpected. The guy was having problems, obviously, but I did not expect him to die from this.
Yeah. We do see Gus trying to talk to Phil about segment changes because he doesn't have notes about him, and Phil just shuts him down. And someone's calling in to tell him that there's problems with the cameras. They're seeing some static and some glitches, and Phil's saying it's not on their end because the cameras are working fine. We see the camera swing over to Carmichael, and he's asking the mother and the sister of Edmund if they filled out a questionnaire before the show, and they said they did, but they also said that there was a lady before and asking them questions. When he asked who the lady was, they say it was the same lady that came out to check on Christou when he hit the ground. So that's like part of his trick, is that he has a woman ask people in the audience before the show starts about their lives, and so then he's able to predict it, but they don't really put two and two together since it's not the person that was asking the questions who's doing this. So it's kind of like his behind the scenes thing.
So we've got two things going on. We've got Christou, who appears to be a phony at this point, but then we've got these strange equipment issues which are not explained.
He also knew about Minnie.
Appears to be paranormal. And but then the real strange paranormal type stuff started happening when he was getting contacted by Minnie. His eyes rolled back. He started to get really bad. The equipment issues started. Something's going on in the paranormal, which Carmichael adamantly denies.
Right. And so, like I talked about earlier, this part of the found footage is a little bit of a stretch because this behind-the-scene footage where they're saying, hey, don't let anybody hear about this, but they're being recorded on camera, is not something they would have been recorded. But to reference Cloverfield, which we covered before, I think it's interesting because in that movie, they covered this concept. HUD is a character who has no social boundaries or gets the idea of cues for what is normal in society. So when someone's having an awkward conversation that they would want to have in private, HUD was filming anyway because he just doesn't understand that that was not appropriate. Here, we just have to imagine that this camera is everywhere and people just talked in front of it anyway. It's a little bit of a stretch for me. But again, I love this movie. So when it's time to go back in the air, Jack makes it back to his seat and Lily asks if everything's okay. I feel like the way she said it, she knows that everything's not okay. And they have a countdown from 10. Jack asks where Carmichael is and Carmichael runs back to his seat. Jack starts asking June that she calls herself a parapsychologist and she interrupts him saying that she has a PhD in the subject. And Carmichael here interrupts her saying, yeah, from the University of Hogwash. And she replies from the University of Stanford Research Institute. And he said that that's the same thing. It's like hogwash.
Yeah, Carmichael is trying to call her out as a phony, just like he did. Yeah, he's still convinced there's no paranormal activity happening.
Right, and every time...
trying to convince others of that, too.
Right, and every time June tries to speak, he interrupts her, and June says, is there any point in continuing this interview if Carmichael is going to interrupt us every single time? And so Jack gets Carmichael to stop and promise that he won't talk until it's his turn. We pull out pieces of her private collection. We see what looks like a human skull. We have a dagger and a journal, just to name a few of the things. Carmichael picks up the dagger, and June says that the dagger was found at the same house that Lily was, and they will believe it was used in many sacrificial ceremonies. And Carmichael acts like an idiot, pretending like the knife's got him and controlling him. And he tells people, turn off your televisions. No, you don't need to see this. And then Jack is like, Haig. Like stop. Like Carmichael. He calls him out. So he puts the knife down. And that's just where he says, like, you guys are suggestible a lot. June says something to the effect of that they are not here for his entertainment. And he throws back at them that Abraxas thrives on it, which is why his name is the favorite phrase of magicians. And Lily tells the audience, abracadabra. And then this is where we find out about Mr. Wriggles. She says that she has this demon inside of her, and that everybody has demons inside of them, and not everybody can control them. And when they ask why she calls him Mr. Wriggles, she says it's because he wriggles his way into my brain, and there's nothing I can do about it.
So the theremin instrument starts playing at this point. So there's equipment issues, and this instrument, just creepy instrument, starts playing again after Lily talks about Mr. Wriggles.
Gus goes over and tries to stop it, and he gets electrocuted a bunch of times, but then Carmichael runs over and just unplugs it and says that it was feeding... Yeah, and he says it was feeding back to the PA system, but Lily says that no, it was Mr. Wriggles. Carmichael says mockingly, if you insist, and Lily asks him why he has to be so condescending. But she says it respectfully. She's like, Mr. Haig, why do you have to be so condescending? Which is so interesting. Jack gets excited that Mr. Wriggles is here and asks Lily if they can talk to him. Lily wants to, but June gets really upset, saying it's not the right environment. Carmichael says that the TV studio is good enough for his money, and Jack reminds June that that's $500,000. When the people in the audience pressure her, Jack is pushing too. She finally agrees if everybody, even Carmichael, will let her do it properly and not interrupt.
And the audience is all for it. They're chanting, come on, June, at this point.
Jack looks at the camera, asks the audience to prepare the televisions for the first as they're going to commune with the devil, but not before a word with their sponsors.
And Jack also says, the people have spoken.
Right.
That was good.
So we're back to black and white again. June accuses Jack of ambushing her. Carmichael says that she obviously didn't need too much convincing. Jack tells Carmichael to shut it and tells June that it's her chance to shut people up. June points out that for a talk show host, Jack doesn't listen, and Phil comes over to get June and Lily ready for the next part.
I thought it was interesting, and maybe this is just my OCD brain thinking, but it seems like after each of these breaks, these commercial breaks, he brings on a new guest. So then at this point, I was thinking, oh, the next guest on his show is going to be Mr. Wriggles.
Sure. So Gus pulls Jack aside. The camera pans. We get Lily being maked up, and we have this like split screen. Sammy tells June that she hopes she knows what she's doing, and Lily responds that she does and calls her by name, which kind of takes her aback. Sammy's the makeup artist. On a different screen, because we have side by side, we have Jack and Gus. Gus is trying to warn Jack from continuing. Jack says he's doing is trying to save the show, and Gus tells him that he knows about Christove and that some of the cast are thinking of jumping ship. Jack says Gus needs to hold them together, and Leo comes in to tell Jack where to set up because they're about to start. It's very dark, and Jack walks into the spotlight. He greets the viewers to what Dr. June Ross Mitchell is about to do. Lily is restrained, and June explains that Lily is a doorway. June's job is just to help open the door and ask everyone to let Lily focus and remain on her. She walks Lily through this process, asking her to go to sleep. She eventually asks for Mr. Wriggles, and Lily's face comes back up, and it looks really different. Her voice is really different. Wriggles asks who these people are and where they are. June tells Wriggles that they brought him out to understand his purpose, and the footage gets staticky a bit during the scene.
More equipment issues.
Yeah. Wriggles realizes Jack is there and tells him it's great to see him again.
Oh, that part creeped me out.
Yeah.
Because Lily, or Mr. Wriggles, through Lily, now says, we go way back. Because Jack's like, basically, I've never met you before, but then Mr. Wriggles says, we go way back. We met amongst the tall trees, remember? And brings it back to the night owls.
Yeah, the footage of the grove.
Yeah.
Yeah. So June jumps in to tell Lily to return to her, but the entity is playful with June and tells her to be careful because she knows what happened to his last whore. It turns to Jack again, saying that now Minnie is gone, he can screw whoever he wants, like Dr. June. It teases June some more for thinking Jack is handsome, and then sings Jack and Jill went up the hill to fuck each other's brains out. And the F-bomb isn't bleeped because it's live TV, but the censors catch it when she says it again. So it's like Jack and Jill went up the hill to beep each other's brains out. Like it's interesting, right? Because it's live television. June then slaps Lily hard enough, and Lily's voice comes back asking why June would hurt her, because she knows she can't help it. June gets close, saying that she would never hurt her, but Lily's face comes back looking even more animal-like.
It was weird.
Yeah, like a werewolf mouth almost.
Oh yeah, and I should have paused and took a closer look, but it looked almost like a bones, like skeleton skull look. Yeah, it was very clever when they made that.
Yeah, Jack runs up, tries to help, but June tells him to stay back. June starts chanting, and Wriggles starts saying it back to her. It takes a moment to look at Jack and ask how Jack could let this happen, but this time her voice sounds different because it's the voice of Minnie again. The lightning starts going through the rafters, and Lily's chair starts to levitate. When the chair hits the ground, Lily is crying and saying she's sorry, and June goes to her and says that she is sorry for putting her in that position. Jax comes closer and asks the audience if they've ever seen anything like that, and this is when Carmichael jumps up, sounding outraged, and he'd like to call out all these tricks.
Yeah, he says he immediately tries to point out a number of tricks employed by the so-called doctor.
Yeah, and then Jack tells him, you'll get your chance right after these messages. All right. And we cut to Carmichael, who's yelling about this freak show. Leo runs in to calm him down. June struggles to get the harnesses off of Lily, and Lily asks if she's okay, and Lily says she's just embarrassed.
And also, Dr. June was wondering about the tall trees that she brought up.
Yeah. And Jack goes, you tell me. This is your thing. And Jack calls over Phil to help with the harnesses because they can't get them off of her. And while Jack and June are talking on the side, Lily starts claiming that Phil is hurting her, so Jack runs over. He grabs the dagger from a stagehand before they take it off a stage, which is very important. He cuts the restraints.
That was crazy because that was the knife they had in the home that Lily would miraculously escape from that burned down. So that cult was using that knife to sacrifice children.
Right.
And he's using the same knife to free her here. That's just bizarre.
Right. So Gus runs up and tries to quit, but Leo tells him you better dial up that grin and not say another word. We cut to Carmichael, who's finished up being maked up, and we see Gus walking by. He tells Gus that it's all smoke and mirrors. He doesn't need to worry. And Gus says that they should have cut the show when Christoph died. Carmichael's confused, and he asks, you mean when Christoph bombed? And Gus fills him in on the fact that Christoph died, which gives Carmichael some pause. Jack finally gets the restraints off, and Lily wants to know what is next, and he says they're about to get ready to wrap up, and it makes her really sad. Jack walks over to Leo and meets him, and he tells him that 3 crew members have just quit, and the Communications Commission have called an emergency meeting at 7 a.m. Jack asks what Bedford thought, and he says that he's thinking it's the biggest rating since the moon landing, and Jack jumps for joy. They also ask if he can get June back, and he says he'll do what he can, but he knows June's already upset. Jack does go into a daze, and Leo asks him what's wrong, and Jack asks if he thought that Lily's voice sounded like Minnie's, and Leo's like, don't you go screwy on me, and says if Minnie was here, she would encourage you to go knock him dead. Leo says that they canceled the costume parade to give Carmichael time to do his soapbox, but then they have to stop because they have to let Cleo do her singing. They start the 10-second countdown. Leo tells Jack that he's still holding the dagger, which he didn't notice, and he puts down onto the coffee table next to him, and this is so important later. Back to color, and Jack starts apologizing to anyone that might have been offended. Then
it's not every day that you see a demonic possession on live television, is what he says.
Yeah. He asks Lily to assure everyone that she's okay, and she says she is. Carmichael can't wait for his turn to debunk just what happened, and sarcastically says he can't wait to see how Carmichael explains this. Carmichael takes a shot at Dr. June, saying that he is very concerned for this little girl, and Dr. June jumps up saying, how dare you? When we found her, she was in a cult that bred her for sacrifice, and now she's got a loving home with compassion, which are probably things that Carmichael thinks are fake as well. Carmichael says that Dr. June has just put Lily under hypnosis to make her believe she's possessed. Jack jumps up to ask how he would explain the physical changes and the voice difference and the fact that she levitated. Jack says that he thinks Carmichael is trying not to part with $500,000, and the audience claps. Carmichael gets up and he says he needs a volunteer and tells Gus thanks, even though Gus didn't volunteer, and Jack tells him to go with Carmichael. He also tells Carmichael we have 5 minutes.
So Carmichael, he said, I would like to prove my thesis without a shadow of doubt. So Gus is voluntold to go to the chair and basically play the person who would be hypnotized by Carmichael.
When Gus was about to get hypnotized by Carmichael, he said, hey, you're not going to spin my head around, are you? Because my wife likes where it sits on my shoulders. So they set up chairs in the same spot. He pulls out like a pocket watch, which is not ticking. He waves his hand in front of it, and it starts ticking. He waves his hand in front of it again. It starts ticking faster. And on the third time, it turns into like a hypnotizing spiral of black and white. He asks the audience and the crew members to all look into it. And Jack says he's got a great view of it on the cameras here. As they look in, he starts talking to Gus. He asks him to be calm and focused, but then he asks him about his vermophobia. When Gus doesn't know what that means, he tells him about his fear of worms. And he's like, well, I mean, what's there to explain? They're slimy, they're ugly, they have no arms or no eyes. And Carmichael adds to this that they thrive in the dark and damp like the inside of a human body. He then asks Gus if he knows that he's in a trance, and Gus says that he isn't, but then Carmichael snaps his fingers and Gus stops moving. He asks Gus if he can hear him and if he knows where he is, and he does. Carmichael asks if he feels any different. Gus starts to strip, saying he's really hot and his skin is really itchy. Carmichael says that your neck is bleeding, and Gus is like, oh, I cut myself shaving, but then yanks a worm out of his neck. Gus starts to freak out. Carmichael is asking him to stay calm, but he rips his stomach open and all these worms start pouring out. Carmichael keeps trying to snap his fingers, but it doesn't work. Carmichael gets out of his chair, backs away. Lily's laughing, asking why Gus is acting so silly. Carmichael is saying that it wasn't supposed to happen, and this big giant worm comes out of Gus's left eye socket, and Jack starts to freak out. Carmichael waves his hand, says, "Dreamer now awake," and Gus is back to normal. He doesn't think they've started yet, but quickly notices that his shirt is open and his body is exposed.
And Carmichael explains that he basically hypnotizes everyone, like the audience, some of the television audience, the guests there, Jack himself, Gus.
And so they get this idea to show what really happened, because he asked the audience, did anybody not see the worms the first time?
Several people raise their hand.
A few people, right? Yeah. And so they play back the footage, and we find out that it was all hypnosis. We see that nothing ever happened. There were no worms. All that grossness didn't happen. And when they play back the tape, and so Carmichael thinks he's proved it. But Lily says, if you really think that's true, then play back our part of the tape. June doesn't want to let her, thinks they should stop. But Lily says, you want them to know the truth, June? Let's shut them up once and for all, basically. So they go back to play the tapes. we see the same crazy face and the same crazy voice
for Lily, but then for Gus, it was very clear that he was indeed hypnotized.
Right.
By Carmichael. Yeah.
So Carmichael thinks that Jack is in on it now, that he wants to study these tapes to make sure they're real, and he thinks that Jack put the people up to it. He's planned this whole thing out from the beginning. That's the only way the tapes could show them what they all saw.
The playback of the video with Dr. June and Lily, though, has one moment where they're stepping frame by frame because Jack thought he saw something.
That's right.
And as you mentioned previously, it was another one of Minnie's ghost. And it was standing right behind Jack in the video. So they caught it on film.
Right, and her hand is on his shoulder.
Wow, yeah.
Right.
That was creepy.
But yeah, so this is where Carmichael says that he set the whole thing up, and he accuses him of thinking another appearance by Minnie would bring the rating spike back up so he can finally be number one. Lily seems to get upset, and we hear electricity. Carmichael says that the encore is quite unnecessary.
It was bizarre because stuff started happening here.
Yeah.
Equipment started malfunctioning. Lily's clearly distressed. She put her head down, and something's going on with her. Like, if I was there, I'd know. Like, we've got to tie her down or something like we did before because Mr. Wriggles is coming back.
Jack asks if he can get some help, and Dr. June yells now when most of the lights go out except on the stage, but then they do as well. And when we see again, it's because Lily has a massive electricity coming through her hands, shooting into the lights above and into the studio monitors. Lily is screaming. Gus yells for Leo to cut the show. Gus runs up to try to help. Lily spins his head around, killing him, and he hits the ground.
He ran into the table, but you're absolutely right. Like,
he tried,
ironically, Lily spins his head around and kills him.
Yeah, he had tried to run up with his cross on his necklace and do an exorcism.
Or should we say Mr. Wriggles did that? Yeah,
sure, right. Then Dr. June, she gets out, she pulls out her necklace as well. She tries to chant what she chanted earlier, Lily to me, but the demon grabs her necklace, pulls her up into the air, hanging her with her own necklace, but then it pierces through her skin and slashes her throat. And so she's dying. Lily throws a stream of electricity at Jack. It sends him flying off stage into the door to the back area. Carmichael drops to his knees and starts calling Abraxas other names like Unholy One and saying that he's now willing to be in his service. Carmichael says, "Oh fuck," and pulls the check out to try to present it like $500,000. Here you go, you won. But Mr. Wriggles starts igniting the check and it burns and then lights a fire with inside Carmichael and he burns from the inside. Mr. Wriggles says, "Abracadabra." Jack is stuck in fear and Leo is able to open the door and pulls Jack through the doorway to try to get him away, but when Jack doesn't move, Leo takes off and saves his own butt. Jack does back away slowly while staring at Lily, and someone closes the door for him. The camera zooms into Lily and we get some weird colorful lines before leading to static. When we're in the static, though, we do see a creepy face fly at the screen, and we get the title card that says Station Difficulties.
Oh, this is my favorite part. These next set of scenes are so surreal, and the station difficulty, that's just the beginning.
Right. So when we come back, Gus is introducing Jack and he's confused how he got there, and he makes a joke about how he drives the same route he always drives. And then we get a montage of the bits we had at the very beginning of the movie.
From other episodes of the same show. And the fact is that he came out from behind the door rather than dressed as a ghost behind Gus at this point.
Yeah.
So then, as you mentioned, it's other scenes from other episodes.
Right. So he's dressed as that caveman again. He's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And the woman's like, "Jack, that's not the line we rehearsed." And he walks off stage and she's like, "Hey, Jack, we're still alive." We get to the scene with the woman and the spider, but this time it's the giant worm like that affected Gus. And it's like the 6-foot long worm.
Coming out of the box where the spider was supposed to be.
Right, this tiny little box. And then we cut to the show with Minnie, and what she says in this show changes. She talks about the same things, but asks if Jack forgot this event, like he's forgotten other things, hinting at he forgot deals that he made or promises that he couldn't keep. We go back to it saying station difficulties, but it seems to melt away.
Oh, yeah, that was really cool. The audio started going all wonky, and the station difficulties started looking like it was melting on the screen. The other thing that was happening here is we had a scene from the previous episode with the wheel that was spinning, and it looked like the hypnosis watch that Carmichael had been using for Gus. Right. I did really like the part where I think it was Minnie who said Delroy's greatest sacrifice is yet to come. Is that her who said that?
Maybe.
And anyway, there were a lot of people in the...
Oh, I know when he says it. It's just a second, right? So after the woman spins the wheel, Jack goes to the camera asking the audience to turn off their sets and starts to scream for everyone to turn off the sets. And then he's back to where he signed that 5-year deal, and there's news reporters. And one of them's asking, Jack, what'd you have to sacrifice to give here? And the guy that gave him the contract says, oh, Jack's biggest sacrifice is yet to come. They hand Jack a goblet. Then 2 people in robes and bird masks come to take him away.
The people in the costumes are so cool. So I don't know if I ever told you this, but at one point when I was younger, I volunteered at an outdoor haunted woods for Halloween. And I played a character. I was the spider who was raised by wolves, but didn't know any better. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. But I would say, though, that the costumes in the scene, you see the leader of the cult that Lily came from. You see the guy who was in the skeleton costume from the audience. You see the other bird costumes come in. And it just reminded me of working with those artisans and craftsmen at the Haunted Woods.
Yeah, we have the leader that's dressed as an owl, and everybody tells him to drink, and they all start squawking like birds. Then in front of him, a door opens. He's down on his knees at this point, and we have a scene where Minnie's on her deathbed. Minnie tells him that he finally made it to where he wanted to be, number 1, but he had to pay the price by saying, Minnie, exit stage left. He tries to say that he never thought they would take her, but he can't finish the sentence, and Minnie goes on to say that his soul belongs to them. He starts crying and saying that he loves Minnie, and she says that if he loves her, he will do one last thing. She looks over to the table, and we see the ritualistic dagger. He embraces her in a hug, and then is immediately brought back to the set when he's holding Lily, who he has just stabbed.
That is crazy because, oh gosh, on so many levels. So first off, Minnie tells Jack that he knows what he has to do, and he has that dagger that came back. He kept saying it was going to come back. And he's stabbing Minnie, who's on her deathbed here. And then, as you mentioned, it goes right back to the set where Jack is stabbing Lily in the chest with that same dagger. And that girl who was originally bred for sacrifice is finally sacrificed by Jack here.
Right. And so it zooms out. We see that Carmichael, Gus, and Dr. June are all still dead in the places that they had died, though Carmichael is not incinerated. He's just on the ground. Jack starts trying to say dreamer here awake, which Carmichael said earlier to wake up Gus to get him out of a trance, and he keeps repeating it, assuming that he might be in a trance, but everybody there is dead. The feed cuts and we see it say in transmission on the bottom left, which static happens and it changed to it is done before switching back to in transmission. And the credits roll and Keep It Warm by Flo and Eddie plays.
Yeah, wow. This movie, I thought it started off a little bit slow for me.
Sure.
But when it picked up, and especially toward the end, I thought it was amazing to me. I loved it. It also brings up a lot of good points. Like, what do we sacrifice? What do we sacrifice as individuals, as people? And is it really worth it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to quit my day job.
Well, okay, so interesting trivia. Carmichael is based on the real life person James Randi, who used to be a talented musician and became a famous psychic debunker, who did work for an institute that offered large rewards to anybody that could produce their supposed paranormal powers in controlled conditions. And over the decades, no one's ever won the money. The cutaways, the "we'll be right back" messages for the network were all made by AI, and this actually caused a lot of stirring. It's a small company that made this film, so it's not like a big, massive studio making it and using AI so they didn't pay people. In interviews, they say they did have an art department, and it was the art department that helped use AI to polish their art. And they said that even after they made AI, they still made artistic changes to it. But a lot of people got upset about it.
I think AI adds a little bit of an aspect that's not so human to it, too. You know, you can feel it's not perfectly human. Humanity has imperfections in everything we do, and just having that there was almost creepy in itself. So
Sure.
I'll say that for horror films, maybe we should have more AI in the future because it's creepy.
Yeah, maybe. But
Terminator,
it did get
Matrix,
them into hot water. I guess some people didn't like it, but I think it did well. I like the movie. The ghost of Jack Dorsey's wife, Minnie, can be seen several times throughout the film. At the end of the prologue explaining Jack Dorsey's backstory, she can be seen in one of the TV monitors. At about 19 minutes into the film, when the psychic is talking to the mother and her child, she appears in a ghostly image near Jack after an audio glitch. I talked about the mirror. She later appears on stage on a quick shot as Jack asks the producers to play it frame by frame. And then I think there's like a crystal ball on the table at one point, and she's like, her image is in that ball or something like that.
Oh, wow. You counted them all. That's pretty cool.
No, someone else did it for me.
Oh, okay.
Online. One thing that was cool is the Stephen King tweeted, "Late Night with the Devil. I got a screener. It's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Your results may vary, as they say, but I urge you to watch it when you can." I thought that was kind of
all
cool.
right. So if Stephen King endorses this, it's got to be good.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it. I hear people that say the opposite of what you said, that they liked it up until the ending, that the lightning was too much for them, that they didn't like the lightning. But it could have been explained by the hypnotism.
Fascinated by lightning. Like, you look at the old stuff from like even Walt Disney in the 1960s or whatever. They like lightning and thunder were always a big deal. Like, it's sort of like, oh, that's spooky, that's scary. So I don't understand that.
Yeah. But I enjoy it. I hope that David Dastmalchian has a lot more roles in the horror genre coming up, because he did a really good job here. And then Lily, the actress that played Lily, who I have trouble pronouncing her last name, is Ingrid Torelli.
Torelli, yeah.
Yeah. I think she did wonderful. I mean, hopefully she's got more coming to her as
she
well.
she was incredible.
But yeah.
I do hope to see her in other movies later, like especially the scenes with the possession with her.
Yeah.
She did a phenomenal job.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for being here again, Stephen. Happy
Thank
Halloween
you.
to everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Hopefully you have a spooky season. And I guess we'll go into Thanksgiving season pretty soon here.
Yeah. Is there any
All right.
horror movies about turkeys?
Yeah, actually, Margo and I are going to cover the film Thanksgiving right here. We're covering that one for Thanksgiving. Wasn't kind of cool.
All right.
All right.
Looking
All right.
forward to it.
All right, guys. We have episodes every Monday, so please subscribe to not miss any more episodes. Coming up soon, we have Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. We're going to cover Immaculate, which is a newer 2024 movie. As Above, So Below. And then, as we hinted here, Thanksgiving coming soon. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.
Bye.